This is by far the easiest way to design a collection for your clothing brand. I'll break down the process of each design for you and show you exactly how to make these designs. Remember, the best time to start your brand was yesterday. So let's lock in. Let's start by making the sweatsuit, which will be the easiest market to break into. We'll be doing a rhinestone style design as it's picking up in the algorithm / Google Trends. We'll start by making the rhinestone. So in the shapes panel, you can go ahead and introduce a polygon. And if you hold and go down, you see the polygon tool, if that makes it easier for you. Now, once you have this shape in itself, all you have to do is change the line to like a gray / white so you can see what you're doing, and also change the fill to the same sort of color / tone. Once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and use the pen tool to outline those shapes that make a polygon. So that's just a bunch of triangles. Once you're happy with that, I basically want you to turn off the fill for everything and just keep the line work. Then I want you to grab the pen tool again and just go and make a bunch of random shapes within those triangles. Now this just gives the diamond or the rhinestone a little bit more of a visual effect to make your mockups look a bit more pleasing. This is not needed. This is just an extra step. Using the live paint bucket tool, we can go ahead and fill in the shape with only light to mid-tone grays. So anything darker than that is going to stand out. And you want to make it kind of random so it looks a bit more realistic. Next, we're going to go ahead and just introduce our mockup just so we have it here. To access this asset and longer form educational videos such as how to use Illustrator, how to generate AI images, and many more, check out Designedbywil, where you'll find this new tech pack and the new OPM asset pack at Patreon/Designedbywil for the Designedbywil community. So for the logo, I'm going to start with this font as a base, and then I'm going to just go ahead and add some more thickness to it. Then I add some kerning / spacing so I have room to work around in. Make a duplicate of that in case you make a mistake and you want to go back. From there, I like to create an outline so it's no longer a formal typeface, and then I like to expand the stroke and then make it all one solid shape. You can just go ahead and ungroup everything. So now you have these letters to play with to make whatever logo / design you want to make. Now I want to go ahead and add a outlier towards this S because it's in the middle of the font, and I think it would be cool to play with it. I just added in a circle and added a stroke to kind of match the thickness of the typeface in itself. I want to keep these letters somewhat readable, but for this H, I'm going to go ahead and split up this middle column just a bit and make it look a bit more futuristic. And that's done by just using a rectangle and then grouping everything and using the shape builder tool to create new shapes. For example, I want this to be a shape, and I also want the other side to be a shape too. But we want to remove this little middle color pillar part. And that's basically how you do it using the shape builder. So now regarding this E, I want to drop down this middle color just a bit so it matches where the R is turning into an R, like a capital R. And then I just want to add that in by dragging that out. By the way, I'm using the direct selection tool as I move around these little anchor points because you can't use the selection tool to move around those anchor points. So direct selection tool is the one with the white fill in, and the selection tool is the one with the black fill in at the very top. As you can see, the black one is selected because I'm using the selection tool to move around the full shape and not individual anchor points. The last step is to finally cut this circle out of the rest of the shape. So first thing I want to do is add an offset to it around 9 and 10, something a bit thick so you can notice it. From here, I use the shape builder tool to create new shapes and then use the direct selection tool to remove the shapes that I've cut out. There, we have our logo complete. Now from here, you can go ahead and add a bit of a shear or a bit of a kerning just to add a bit more flavor towards the logo in itself. Let's set up our Illustrator space a bit better so we can have some colors to work with. So in the color books within the swatches, you can go ahead and open Pantone plus CMYK uncoded, and then you can drag it to the left to make it its own panel. Now at the very bottom, right next to the black, there's this really dark gray, which I use to indicate black on all my mockups, mainly because you can still see the line work. If you just make it solid black, you won't see the line work. The live paint bucket tool to color in all the mockups. So with the live paint bucket tool, it essentially allows you to color each individual section like it's a shape in itself. Now I'm going to walk you through how to make the rhinestone pattern. So in object, go down to pattern and press new. And from here, you want to press size the tile to the artwork. And now you would have these options that come up as H spacing and V spacing. So that's horizontal and vertical spacing. And in here, you can adjust the sizing of your pattern dimension, or how much sizing the actual pattern needs. For instance, when you see these rhinestone patterns, there's ones with very tight and those ones with a lot of spacing in between. I like the ones with a lot of spacing. So here I'm just playing with the different dimensions regarding the H spacing and the V spacing to see which one looks the best based on the references that I've seen online. And once you're happy with that, all you have to do is press done. When using live paint, you can't move any other panels because it's going to disturb the live paint. But the way to work around that is you go to object, expand, and you expand everything all together. Once you've done that, you're going to expand the live paint, and you can use the direct selection tool to move around the different panels that live paint has created. While selecting that panel, you can go ahead and head into your layers panel, and you can search for the panel that you've direct selected. And the way you do that is click this layer panel right here and press this little search icon, and it's going to highlight that panel that you selected. The reason why this is important is because we can quickly make a duplicate of this by holding Alt and dragging up, and then we can select our rhinestone within the swatches panel. Now, obviously, I haven't edited this sort of rhinestone pattern yet to match what I want, but that's exactly how you make a rhinestone pattern more efficiently. Just going back to the previous step, once you have your pattern how you want it and you've changed the spacing, it's just a simple matter of fact of repeating the step of duplicating that color layer that we've created and then using a eyedropper tool to select the new pattern that's on top, and bam, you're done. Now just repeat this until you have your whole markup rhinestoned. I want to go ahead and add a bit more character towards the type because I don't really like the super clean look. As you guys know me, I like to add grunge effects to everything. So I'm going to go ahead and launch Photoshop, and I'm going to launch a new document. And this document is going to be 3,500 by 3,000, but it's going to be on a vertical format. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce our logo into there. Just copy and paste it directly from Illustrator to Photoshop. Once we have it here, we can go ahead and introduce our texture. Before we do anything for that texture, I want you to go ahead and add a mask to your logo. Next, I want you to go to select and press color range. From here, I want you to play with the fuzziness and the range until you can see the black points start to stand out on this map. Once that's complete, all you have to do is press OK/done, and then go to that new mask that you've made and fill that mask in with black. You can't see it because the logo is white, but when I set it to black, you can clearly see that we've added a pattern/effect to this. Now, I have a whole video on my channel about adding textures on. So if you guys want a more in-depth breakdown, I'll link that video in the description. The last few steps are just to create a mock-up for the back and also a pants mock-up and some colorways. And that's design 1 complete. For design 2, it's a lot more simple to make, but you can make it as complicated as you want. For this one, I want you to find a saying regarding your brand. This could be anything really, but it has to relate to sort of your logo or some meaning behind your brand. Next, I want you to grab those words and spread them out on each individual text planes. And then from there, I want you to find different fonts that you enjoy. Now, this can be anything. I've seen a lot of people use the graffiti style font because it works really well. But for me, I'm going to keep it nice and clean. Assuming this design is going to go on a sort of cropped t-shirt, so to speak, we're going to make a little bounding box to warp our text around in. Now, you want to kind of fill this or jam pack your font to maximize the amount of space it's taking up. So whether that's holding shift or not holding shift to warp around the text, but please don't be scared to warp around your text. Once you're happy, I want you to select everything and line it all up using the aligning tools, and then create outlines of each design. Lastly, I just ungrouped everything so it's easier to move around the individual letters within the text group and add in different effects/logos. I'm going to be using the Nebula pack from Designedbywil.com because it has items like targets that fit perfectly within the whole style brand name. This will mirror the steps that we used to make the logo for the first hoodie. We just want to grab this icon here, make it a bit thicker, and then create an offset so we can go ahead and cut it out of the H and the L to make it one complete design. Once we have our offset, we can just select those 2 letters and the new offset, and using the shape builder tool, we can go ahead and create new shapes for the L and the H. And then we can use the direct selection tool to remove this offset and then remove the existing spaces, and then bam, a complete design. For the lock, and I'm gonna go ahead and just create an offset to make it all one cohesive looking design. And we wanna make sure all these letters are touching. So I'm using the direct selection and just removing some of that spacing and then making it all one shape. And then from here, we can go offset path, and then press OK. And then just select a new color so we can see our new offset. With the top typeface, instead of going ahead and adding an offset, I just went ahead and added in a stroke. This allowed us to go into the stroke options and put the stroke for the inside, allowing us to kind of have an offset sort of look, but without having the hassle of going in and ensuring we're selecting everything. Especially with that target, you don't want to keep doing that. And I just thought of creating an outline for the bottom one and then adding in this gun for the L to make it look a bit more dynamic in terms of design. I wanted to add a bit of an effect to the lock because Holstar and Loaded both have something going on, and lock is just very boring at the moment. So I just went ahead and applied an effect, which is a warp, and just played with it a bit and brought it to the front. For the Loaded in itself, I just added 2 contrasting colors for the offsets. I know you guys are getting tired of hearing the word offset, but again, I told you that this part is very repetitive. To add a bit of cohesiveness towards the collection, I wanted to add the same sort of grunge texture towards this design also. I just shaped it to the artboard and then copied over the mask from the Holstar logo from the hoodie, and that was it. And with that being done, that's design to complete. All you have to do is just add it to your markup and play with different colors using that live paint bucket tool. And that's design to complete. We're going to go ahead and move on to design 3, which is going to be the jersey style tee. You can go ahead and make a jersey style tee from scratch if you really want to, but I'm going to show you guys how to utilize these markups to their full potential. So these ventilation stripes, we're going to go ahead and remove those first because we don't really need them. And we're going to be making some custom ones that go all the way through the sleeves. Next, we're going to go ahead and remove any unnecessary stripes. So the second stripe, we don't really need that because we're not making a stripe focused design. Utilizing the pen tool, I can go ahead and draw in my new ventilation stripe, and it's going to come all the way up into the armpit, all the way down to the front, making a more athletic sort of design. And I've made these designs with perfect symmetry. So all you have to do is basically reproduce or copy and paste onto the other side and reflect it and just drag it into the right position and you're complete. The last bit of detail I want to do is remove this little stripe or little line that's going through the side ventilation to make the design look a bit more complete / unique in terms of its jersey look. And with this design, I'm going to be going back and forth because I didn't plan this one out. So we're going to be looking at ways I'm adding in stuff and ways I'm taking away. The first thing I want to do is add in the main sponsor, which is going to usually be your brand name. So it's going to be Holstar with a varsity team bold font and a little bit of a stroke. For the by text, we're going to keep it as lock and loaded to keep it consistent within the whole collection. And the font I'm using is called Acumen, and it just has a little bit of a stroke to look a bit more bold. Now, to save yourself some time, you can go ahead and use logos that you already have with your clothing brand because you want to make this jersey look like it's filled with sponsors unique towards your brand. Same text as the front, we're going to have Save the Youth because I kind of use this within all my designs, even stemming back from 2020. Let's go ahead and start working on the actual crest. This time we're going to start with these 2 lines using the pen tool, and then we're going to go ahead and use the curvature pen tool to make 2 curves on that long line to make a sort of crest looking logo. And then on the top one, we're just going to curve it in. Next, we're going to make a duplicate and then transform and reflect it to the other side. From here, we can go ahead and drag it across until the ends are touching a bit, and then we can go ahead and line that up and use the shape builder tool to make that one solid shape. Now you have a crest. Now you can put as much effort as you want into this. For this, I'm going to just keep it nice and simple. So I'm going to add this little circle here and adding a star, which usually indicates that you've won a championship or some sort of accomplishment within your branding. Next, I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this over, and I'm going to go offset path. And this time I'm going to put in a negative offset because we're going to do something really special to make some sort of, athletic stripes. So we're going to put like a -13. Depending on how thick your lines are, you can adjust this. Let's go ahead and remove the original before the offset, and then we're going to go ahead and introduce a rectangle. We'll simply just use the shape builder to separate the two shapes because we just want the bottom bit, and remove the top bit by using direct selection. And then now you can remove the rectangle. Let's go ahead and line that up into the original that we have, and we see that it fits, which is perfect. Let's make some stripes. Start off with the rectangle, make that solid black and remove any strokes, and then using Alt, drag across to make a duplicate, and then press Command D to repeat the action that you've just done. Make sure all these are aligned using the alignment tools to the left in your properties panel, and then set those to the back. Once you've sent those to the back, you can go ahead and make a clipping mask, and then bam, now you have stripes, and then you can add those into your design, thus making you a soccer style jersey logo. Now all that's left is to do a bunch of color blocking. Since we have the jersey and it has a lot of lines, you're just going to use the live paint bucket tool to color to your heart's content, whether that's following any trendy colors or seasonal colors, or even colors that match within your brand identity. Go ham, because this is the funnest part when it comes to these soccer jerseys. You can go through a numerous amount of color options. Now, to make my design a bit more unique, I went ahead and just made replica, I guess, sponsors based around actual sponsors on soccer jerseys, whether that's fuel companies or food companies, any sort of stuff like that. In the past, I've like recreated like the Coca-Cola logo for a brand name and put that on. Obviously, there's legal implications to try to make it as unique as possible, but just following maybe the color style and switching out a font, or maybe keeping the font and switching out a color style. All the technical stuff that you need in order to make these, I've went through throughout this whole video, whether that's offset, creating outlines, separating text, and making custom shapes. It's all the same thing, just done over and over again. Once you're happy with color and placement, that's going to be the jersey design complete. Now, moving on to the final design, it's not really much so a design process. Now, this is a logo I made for the jersey. Obviously now it looks like a sponsor, but we want to make it look like a complete logo. The first thing we want to do is remove any unnecessary color like the red, and then make anything expanded if we want it to be expanded. Next, I usually just grab one of the objects and see what it will look like if they were cut out, to see if we could remove anything. To me, I kind of like how the cowboy looks in red, but I think I might switch that to black. I'll make the outside rectangle and the inside circle one object, and then I'll round it off in the center so it looks a bit more futuristic. Without a back placement, this text looks like it's floating. So I'm going to go ahead and add a bit of a stroke, and then I'm going to adjust the outline so it's on the outside, but also change the cap and the corners so they're a bit more rounded to suit the sort of rounded corners that we have. We'll repeat the same text effects that we did, but for the horse, and we'll inverse it so it looks like the cowboy is cut out of the type. To ensure that this collection moves cohesively, we're going to grab elements like the 555 from the back of the jersey onto this jacket also, just to finish it up and add something to that empty space, which I don't like. To close up on touch-ups, I just go ahead and run through the shape builder tool and build a bunch of custom little shapes here and there to make the jacket look a bit more complete. Now, I went with this very ugly color blocking of white and black, but to me personally, I feel like if this was produced, it would look really nice. And now in the next few videos, I'm going to be getting samples of the few designs I've made over the past few months, like the God Did tee, and also the very popular tees that I've made throughout this YouTube channel, so you guys can see the sampling process. So make sure you guys subscribe and you are here for that. I'm going to show you guys a full collection, and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Now, this is the full collection. As you can see, most of the designs are not hard to do. They just require a little bit of manual labor when it comes to Illustrator and Photoshop. My job is to make sure that you guys have the technical skills to make these designs for your clothing brand, or get a little bit of inspiration when designing your next collection. I hope you guys got some knowledge from this video. I love you. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.